We have in big ideas, again, our forecast for 2027, I think, is around 650,000, and beyond that, 1.5 million.
Say that again. In the big ideas research that you guys published, what are the two numbers?
The two numbers we have, our base case is roughly 650,000 for 2027. Now that has come down. We were using 1 million plus 4 or 5 years out, but because we've had the debacles associated with centralized, opaque institutions, as opposed to decentralized and transparent, institutions are going to hold back a little bit. But we still think that the million plus is right in our bull case. Mm-hmm. And you can see how we build our case and look at the assumptions, how much institutional involvement and so forth. Very conservative assumptions.
Mm-hmm. Cathie Wood is a prominent advocate for Bitcoin's potential growth. She predicts that Bitcoin's value will surge to $650,000 per coin by 2027, with the possibility of surpassing $1 million in the future. Her firm, Ark Invest, is dedicated to blockchain technology and Bitcoin, evident in their Big Ideas report released earlier this year. Despite recent concerns due to institutional debacles, Cathie remains optimistic about Bitcoin's long-term prospects. In a recent interview with Anthony Pompliano, Cathie Wood confirmed her base case projection of $650,000 for Bitcoin by 2027. However, she acknowledges that some events involving centralized institutions have made her revise her estimates. The regional banking crisis earlier this year has led her to believe that institutions might exhibit more risk aversion in the future. Nevertheless, Cathie's conviction in Bitcoin's potential remains unwavering. She even envisions a mind-blowing scenario where Bitcoin could reach an astonishing $1.5 million per coin by 2027. For those interested in understanding her reasons for considering Bitcoin the greatest investment she has ever made, watching the entire interview with Cathie is highly recommended.
You know, I think one of the things that I love about Bitcoin in particular is my economics background matters. And so here are all of these developers and young people very interested in the space, and I want to learn from them and they want to learn from me. So it's been fun. So much, it's brought in probably all of my expertise from an investing point of view and from an economic point of view. And it's wonderful, that this can bridge that gap, the economics and the technology. In the early days, so we started our research when we were at AllianceBernstein first. That was 2011. Founded Ark 2014, did the research, and in fact, when we first broke out the 5 major innovation platforms, we did not have AI and blockchain there. We had instead we had that in mind, those in mind, but we had next generation internet. And as we started doing our Bitcoin research, I brought in Art Laffer, who's a very well-known economist, known for fiscal policy theory as well as monetary policy theory. And he agreed to collaborate. And when he said, "This is what I've been looking for. Ever since we went off the gold exchange standard in 1971, a rules-based global monetary system." And I said, "Oh, wow, how big could this be?" And it was only a $6 billion, we called it network value at the time, market cap. He said, "Well, how big is the US monetary base?" And I said, "Well, it's 4.5 trillion. And now, of course, it's 8 trillion, 7.5, 8 trillion. He said, "Well, there you go." And so I bought personally, and
that's a big number, Art.
And in fact, Chris Berniski was our analyst at the time, and there was no vehicle to put it in our funds. GBTC was just coming of age, and we were doing our due diligence. And so I bought $100,000 worth, just personally, and Chris became here I am, the portfolio manager, and it was his research that moved me to do this, and like it was so early, and so he doubled down on his research. And it was
it's bad if your boss loses money because of your research, right?
But then of course, the rest is history. I guess we're at is it 300 billion-ish
something like that, yeah.
now, and many people know that we think that's 300 billion in market cap or network value at $24,000. And we have in big ideas, again, our forecast for 2027, I think, is around 650,000, and beyond that, 1.5 million.
Say that again. In the big ideas research that you guys published, what are the two numbers?
The two numbers we have our base case is roughly 650,000 for 2027. Now that has come down. We were using 1 million plus 4 or 5 years out, but because we've had the debacles associated with centralized, opaque institutions, as opposed to decentralized and transparent, institutions are going to hold back a little bit. But we still think that the million plus is right in our bull case. And you can see how we build our case and look at the assumptions, how much institutional involvement and so forth. Very conservative assumptions. And our conviction actually has grown through this year, grown through this past year, because FTX, Celsius, 3AC, Voyager, all of these were centralized, opaque institutions. They went bust. And even the centralized, regulated institutions, now we're looking at Genesis, probably bankruptcy, yes, Silvergate, these are regulated. And they're but again, they're much more centralized. Right, well, Bitcoin came out of 08, 09, right? And look at all the regulated companies that went under then, and all of the counterparty risk that nobody understood, and all of the paperwork that had not been done. So, I do think about what you're saying. I don't think, we worry about the innovation that is leaving the US and moving to other countries who are much more friendly. The UK, I think is, and Europe generally, from a regulatory point of view, has much more of a solution, more clarity than the US. But I think the American DNA is such, and we see it in how regulators are going this far, and the most interesting one to me, now consider the source, we own it. I want to be very clear.
Everything that we've spoken about today, you should assume one of the two of us own it.
Right. So Coinbase. Now I'm listening to the regulators, and they're saying, well, if it looks like a security and it walks like a security and it quacks like a security, then it's a security. And we will enforce the securities laws. That's what the SEC does. And I'm thinking, well, Coinbase had to go through the SEC. They had to issue an S1. Highly regulated. They had a lot of tokens that now the SEC is questioning as securities. Well, has the definition of its security changed since Coinbase went public in 2001? And it went public around the time that Gary Gensler came in. So maybe that's where the disconnect is. Gary Gensler is much more of an enforcer. I don't know, but the definition of a security should not have changed. And if they didn't think these should have been on Coinbase's platform, then they shouldn't have let them go through. I think what it is a process of iterating to the right answer, and it's very messy. So if you look at how derivatives evolved in the markets, it was very messy. They had to put in place not a completely new regulatory structure, but they had to bring the CFTC into the discussion, and we got a whole bunch of new guidelines and rules, right? So I think that's where we're going with this new asset class, which we really do. We believe it's a new asset class. I know that, but I know there are securities associated with the new asset class. So let's just be clear. Bitcoin, you've told us, is not a security. Great. Coinbase clearly is a security, and it has on top of it assets that could be a new asset class. So I think we're iterating. It's been very messy. Even this a concept of staking, I don't know if you saw Gary Gensler's video where he said, no, I'm not talking about stake, S-T-E-A-K. He's trying to make this very, he's trying to be approachable, and I'm talking about S-T-A-K-E. And then you look at, okay, the one that Paxos basically said it would stop staking.
There's a couple of them.
Yeah,
I think Kraken said it, and Paxos as well. Yeah.
Kraken. Well, Coinbase has a staking service, but it is a utility, not a security. So again, we're iterating, and it is interesting to watch the SEC try to figure this out. You're right, that is a service. It's a technology here. It's a security here. And it's like, it's complicated, right?
Cathie Wood's prediction for Bitcoin, supported by Ark Invest's research and strong belief in the transformative potential of blockchain technology, is remarkable. She foresees Bitcoin reaching an astronomical value of $650,000 per coin by 2027 in her base case scenario. Moreover, in the most bullish scenario, Cathie envisions an astounding price of $1.5 million per coin. This bold outlook reflects her unwavering conviction in the future prospects of Bitcoin and the disruptive power it holds in the financial landscape. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these two awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.